Hello, friends and colleagues. Welcome back to the Think Catalyst podcast. My name is Ricardo Ferraris, and I'm here with my business partner, Vivek Kuchibotla. How are you, Vivek? Good afternoon.
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. After a restful Easter week, uh, ready to get back to work and do a lot of things. And enjoying the podcast. I always enjoy the podcast. They're a lot of fun. We're getting
I
great
agree.
feedback. We're getting great feedback from the podcast because people are listening to it, and I think that they are very interested in what we have to say about a number of different things. And as
It's also
usual,
nice. It's nice to get things off your chest as well.
as well. And as usual, we have an interesting episode for our listeners today. You and I, we always talk about the magic that happens when an agency and a client work really well together. And when the relationship is strong and it's healthy and it's based on, a lot of the good things that go into a business relationship. That said, I pass it on to you, Vivek. That said,
That's it. In this podcast, we're going to talk about um, ad industry misconceptions and their dangerous consequences. And I want to add something here that I was just thinking about. Um, I am bicultural. And by bicultural, I mean I spent 10 years on the client side and 10 years on the agency side. So I am lucky enough to have lived on both sides. And when you've had that experience, you see things differently. You see
mhm,
things from both perspectives.
mhm.
And in this podcast, we're going to talk about things that it might surprise some people, but when you look at it from both sides of the coin, it makes perfect sense. But when you only see half of the picture, um, you might be missing something. So that's the general thought here.
What's the paraphrase on this?
Um, this is interesting. Let's see how many people pick up on this reference.
Mhm.
Many years ago, there was a very famous book called Men Are from Mars and Women Are from Venus. And it talked about how men and women were different, but they had to live together.
Right,
And so the paraphrase here is advertisers are from Mars and agencies are from Venus.
right, right.
They work together, but they don't really understand each other. And these misunderstandings cause a lot of trouble. So we'll try to highlight some of these misconceptions and talk about the consequences that these misconceptions generate.
And think of what not to do with your agency if you're an advertiser, and maybe think about bringing certain things up as an agency to your client if it's something that is going to hinder on the relationship. And stay away from danger, right? Stay away from danger. When
Absolutely.
you see a collision coming, stay away from the collision.
It would be great if, as we go through these misconceptions, our listeners would sort of go, hadn't thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we manage to get that reaction on some of these misconceptions, I think we'll have done a good job.
Right.
Why don't you go with the first one, you being an agency guy 100%, and
I've
I'll do the
been
next one as an advertiser.
I've been an agency guy for 38 years, and I have seen all kinds of clients. And point number one is about, many agency people think that basically clients are all the same and respond the same way. And that's far from the truth. Their clients are very, very different. And if we don't know how to read them properly, you can end up in trouble quite quickly. in managing their business and in managing their expectations as well. So we'll talk, and you've worked with a number of these as well. So
Oh, absolutely.
mm,
Absolutely.
mm,
I think the fact that we use the same word to describe them throws them all in the same bucket. So we call everyone a client.
right.
But as far as I can tell, in my experience, there's at least four clear different types, which I'll just very quickly lay out. The first one, from my perspective, is the classic CPG marketer. This is the guy who is in marketing management, which means marketing as a stepping stone into a general management position. And you'll find these people at the packaged goods companies, the Procters, the Unilevers, the Nestle's, the Colgates. Um, and I think it's important to understand that for them, marketing is a ladder into general management. So
Right.
so they're very business focused. And they have line responsibility. They always have a P&L responsibility. So they're responsible for the final decisions on a lot of things.
Mhm.
So that would be the first category. The second category is what I like to call the marketing communications manager. And this person typically will work in a company where marketing is not a stepping stone into general management. So this is not P&G. This is, for example, Ford Motor Company, or it's Microsoft, where the people actually running the company and Microsoft are the technology people,
Right.
the
Very different.
programmers, the computer people,
Yeah.
and advertising is largely a staff function.
Right.
And not only is it a staff function, but the geeks know a lot about computers, but they don't know a lot about advertising. They're not very interested in advertising, and they generally pluck someone from the agency world to be the marketing communications manager. But unlike the CPG people, the marketing communications manager does not have the final decision on anything. This person will still have to report into the geeks, and the geeks will say yes or no. So that's the first difference.
Mhm.
Marketing communications people, when they deal with the agency, they're the client. But when they go back home to corporate, they're not the bosses. They don't make the decisions. And that has huge implications for the agency
Well,
to
their
work with.
clients are the internal people that run the businesses individually. So
They're bosses,
they're bosses.
actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
more than clients. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But their
so they
clients are
have to
the
do a
internal
lot of
people.
internal selling,
Right. Correct.
uh, and they don't have as much power as we in the agency like to think that they do. They
Right.
don't,
Right.
but they'll never admit it. The third
One of my
category,
favorites.
I owe a lot of these gray hairs to this particular category. This is the marketer in a franchisee organization.
Mhm.
And these people are, in a sense, similar to the marketing communications people that we talked about just a little while ago, with the difference that these people have to deal with franchisees, and franchisees are independent businessmen with very, very strong opinions
Opinions.
about everything.
Yeah.
So these
Huge
unfortunate
infighting,
marketers.
huge infighting within themselves too, by the way. So you're there and they're trying to control the chaos.
Exactly. You,
Mhm.
you you are in a foxhole, and you're worried about the enemy's fire, and you're worried about friendly
Friendly
fire as
fire.
well, and you're just trying to survive. Um, and the other thing about marketers in a franchisee organization, the only thing franchisees care about, this is sounds extreme, but it really isn't. They only care about the cash register.
Right.
So as long as sales are good,
Yeah.
everything's fine.
Fine.
The minute sales are slow,
Soft.
it's
Yeah.
the marketer's fault,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So and that can change from one day to the other, literally.
Mm.
In McDonald's, if sales for the week or for a 3-day period were not what was expected, you got to do something and fix it immediately. You're not going to wait till the end of the month. You got to do it immediately. So
Yeah.
it's very stressful.
Yeah.
And then the last one, and this is particularly prevalent in Latin America. It's the marketer who works in a family company that is owned by a family and run by the scion of the family. And what's interesting in particular about this marketer is that he will not ever go against the wishes of the family. He's not there to debate what the family should or shouldn't do. His job is to execute what the family wants done.
Right.
And an example of this, and I will not use the company's name, but everyone will recognize which company I'm talking about. There's a company in Mexico which is very, very conservative, and they have a very clear idea of what advertising should look like, and they really do not want to offend anyone. And it's a hugely successful company and has been for 100 years, and it's now present in 35 markets, and it's very successful. And the marketing manager's job there is to basically execute the vision
Yeah.
of the founding company.
No rocking the boat there.
No
No
rocking
way.
the boat.
No
No rocking the
risk.
boat.
Very little risk.
No risk whatsoever. Um, and it's I'm not saying that one of these is better than the other. All I'm saying is that these are four
Right.
different types of clients,
That's correct.
and they respond to different decision makers. They have different hot buttons, and they just have to be handled differently.
Yeah.
So no, all clients are not equal. They're all different.
In agreement. It's interesting also to see clients moving from one company to another and how they take in new cultures and different ways of working. Because and you've seen them and you know them and so forth, and they're almost surprised
Oh,
about
absolutely.
how different that is. In the agency world, we're not surprised. We are anesthetized by already that process. So we're ready to go.
Well, because in the
Yeah,
agency world, you work with 15
yeah,
or 20 different companies,
clients
and
all the time.
you just learn to live with it.
I know.
Okay, so let me go with number two as an ex-advertiser. And I have to admit that when I started out and I was a brand manager, I actually believed this.
Mm,
And 35 years ago, it may have been true.
mm.
But this misconception is that advertisers believe that agencies make bundles of money, and therefore, if I squeeze their compensation, this is not going to affect the quality of the work or the service that I get from agencies. So,
Not true.
agency guy, tell me,
No,
tell me
not
why that's not true.
not true. It's not true. And interesting. I mean, we can go into compensation options and compensation models, etc., in another podcast. But every client is almost like a mini P&L inside the agency. And if you take away, if you lower the income, you take away resources, you're just not going to get the quality people and staff and dedication and time. It's just a function of that. And so that you may be saving money, but you may be creating a situation of No, not the marketing team not being happy with the agency work and the relationship. So you need to be very careful with that. The main source of revenue for agencies is the client fees. It could be agency commission. It should be transparent. I am okay with showing the client, how our cost structure is made up. And agencies have the right to make their 15% profit on
or more,
the account or more,
or more.
absolutely. So, and they are a huge contributor to the development and the sales of the client's brands. So why not share in that success and be part of that? There's a number of different factors that have happened over the last 10, maybe 15 years that have changed that. So you want to comment some more, Vivek?
Yeah, I just like to add that beyond just squeezing the fee, if you then drag out payment terms and it's no longer 30 days, it's now 90 days or 120, or even in some cases 180 days, um, you're destroying the agency basically. The agency is not a bank.
Right.
They're not designed to finance advertisers, and it won't end well. You will have to deal with a lot of very inexperienced people who are juggling 5 different accounts at the same time, and if you pay very little, you'll get what you pay for, basically.
It creates a vicious cycle too, because if the agency doesn't perform well because it doesn't have the right resources, this will create tension in the relationship. And then ultimately, the client will call out and say, we're going to start a review and we'll relook at who our agency partners are and go from there. The problem is that changing agency with that mindset will not change will not fix your problem. Will
Of
not fix
course.
your problem. Um, interestingly enough, the agency fees are not necessarily the largest part of the marketing budget. They're actually a very small part of the marketing budget. The bigger marketing budget is the media and the production, etc. So getting the agency wrong and not getting the right work from the agency, that actually has an impact on the rest of your marketing budget. And this is
Of
where
course.
CMOs fail spectacularly and then are kicked out and fired because of the chaos that has come down. The relationship with your agency is like the relationship with your best friend or with your wife or partner or husband, a family member. Keep it close. Once they're in, make them part of your team, make them part of your mission, and they will fight harder and more for you with resources, with time, and dedication. So,
Conversely, if you want to destroy your relationship before you start, pay the agency not a lot of money, stretch out payment terms, and then make them live under the threat of losing the account for any small
yeah,
mistake.
yeah,
That is the kiss of death. That will never work.
yeah.
That's just the wrong way to do it.
It,
Unfortunately, it happens a lot.
you don't want cheaper staff on your business. You want
You
you want a combination of staff that includes also some very senior people who are there and will give you the right advice and lead the account. So,
Yep.
point three, advertisers believe that they should get great work from the agency, even though they put junior marketers to manage it. I am very concerned about this trend because junior marketers are not necessarily the best people to make the decisions as it relates to the agency work. It has huge impact in terms of direction, in terms of the feedback, in terms of the amount of rework that is often necessary because they're guessing their bosses as well. I think it's great to have them in the in the whole process. They should be aware of how a brief is developed, but the most senior marketer should be involved and be very close to processes, and sign off on the brief and help guide her team in terms of the feedback and how to treat the agency and how to input properly as the work is being developed. It's a huge issue. Juniorization is a huge issue. It's mainly driven by lowering the pricing on agency services. And then clients complain. There's a lot of turnover. There is, all of the learnings that were accumulated with the team have gone away. We have to rebrief everyone. There's some serious concerns that come out from that thinking.
So if you have junior people working at the agency and you have junior people working at the client, and collectively, and forgive the expression, but I gotta say it, collectively, both sides don't know their ass from their elbow, it's not gonna end well. It's gonna be just rework, frustration, and the end product will be mediocre. So, there's an old saying, little kids should be seen and not heard. Well, I believe junior marketers should be seen and not heard until they earn their stripes.
Have them in the process, have them learn.
Have them in the process. They got to be there. They got to learn.
Yeah.
But they can't manage the process. That's the big thing.
I'm most concerned with the quality of the work, Vivek, because you can tell when the work wasn't done with probably, the level of experience and quality that it deserved. So very concerning.
You can hire a marketer out of Harvard or Stanford or Oxford, or you name the best business school in the world, and they will know next to nothing about briefing, about evaluating creative work, about working with an agency, about creative thinking, which are all the things that they actually have to master to be able to work with an agency. And unfortunately, there's not more than 10 or 15 companies in the whole world that have training programs that are fit for purpose in this area. So hiring a smart person does not mean that he is going to be ready to work with the agency immediately. It takes time. It takes time and training. Let me go with point number 4. This is, what over the last 10 years or so, agency of record relationships have been decreasing, and all of a sudden everything is done on a per project basis. So this misconception is that advertisers believe that switching to per project work primarily or only will not affect brand building. And this is definitely not true. It will affect brand building. And the reason is simple. Building a brand is like building a house, and every bit of communication is a brick you put in there to build a house. Obviously you need creativity, you need consistency, and you need coherence. And you can only have that with a stable partner. If you work on a per project basis, each one of the bricks that you're putting in that house are going to be different. They're going to be different colors, different materials, and you're not actually going to build a house. You're just going to put bricks on bricks and see what happens. You need consistency, and you cannot get consistency on working on a per project basis. This is I will die on this hill. This cannot be done.
Well, I mean, it causes, again, the learning from the past, is also uh, let go, and lost. And I think that affects, the possibility of repeating and making the same mistakes, and it's an endless learning curve. It's an endless learning curve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And advertisers will argue, well, you know what? The person in charge of making sure everything is coherent is the brand manager or the marketing manager,
Sure.
not necessarily the agency. But the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of turnover in brand managers and a lot of turnover in marketing managers as well. A typical brand manager will be on a brand for maybe a couple of years and then move on, or he
Yeah.
may leave the company.
Yeah.
So if you have turnover, if you have a lot of agencies working, and within the corporation you have a lot of different people running the brand, you're going to get a crazy quilt of different activities, but you're not really going to build a brand over time.
You want your agency to feel secure. And with that security, in the sense that they're not, I mean, look, you and I have experience and have been fortunate to work with clients that have had long tenures at the agencies that we've worked at. That creates not a sense of entitlement or a sense of comfort, but there is a sense of partnership that is there. And curiously enough, I think better work comes out when, you're not fearing that the account will go, that you're going to, after this project, you won't have more work, that you won't be working with this client anymore, that you aren't, you want to be able to invest in this client on a number of different things going forward in the future. So you want to create also a relationship that has a commitment to it. And one of the things that is important for clients to understand is think also about it in terms of the agency revenue and profitability. Okay. When and clients have asked me, said, look, I'm willing to pay more, but I want better people and I want less turnover and I want them dedicated to my account full time. That has a cost, an implication to it. But generally, we weren't penny pinching and negotiating, every couple of months. We were doing things on a long-term basis, and great results came out of that as well.
And the more time someone spends on a specific piece of business, the more he understands everything about the business. And I remember back in the late 90s, I was working at Leo Burnett, and the person who ran the Kellogg account at Leo Burnett, he worked on the Kellogg business for probably 25 years at the agency, and then he became CEO of the agency. And Kellogg decided to hire him to become CEO of Kellogg. They thought enough of this person to take him from the agency and hand him the reins of Kellogg Company.
Right.
This is how much this guy knew about the business.
Right.
Extreme example. I'm using it just to illustrate that the more time you work on a business, the more you understand it, the more you can actually add value. That can never happen when the work is done on a per project basis.
Right. One more point to add, Vivek. When agencies are working on a per project basis, where are the senior people at? They're doing new business.
They're doing new business.
They're doing new business. They're not working
Of
on your
course.
They're not working on your business. They're doing new business because they got to find out. They got to figure out how they're going to be paying the bills in the next couple of months.
Of
Okay.
course.
And
It's that simple.
so again, back to juniorization, lack of follow-up, lack of all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
Think about it. Think about it.
Um,
I'll go with the last
you
point.
you do the last one, because if I do it, I'll go off on a rant. We don't
Well,
want
we'll
that.
go off on a rant anyways, because actually
Okay.
this is a controversial point. And some agency use it, and I've seen it used, and I've seen it fail almost all of the time. And that is, there's some agency people that believe that clients are not brave. right? That they're cowards. And they will not approve big and great ideas. And that's far from the way you should be treating or thinking about your client. Okay. Because it's condescending in terms of the behavior and the thinking. But go
It is
ahead,
offensive.
Vivek, let it rip.
Well, you know what? And this behavior, you see it in clients, but you see it in agencies. You see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Clients are not crazy, and their career is not a game, right? No one wants to risk their career on a whim, right? So what clients look for is the highest benefit at the lowest risk. And oh, by the way, so do agencies. And oh, by the way, so do you and I when we invest our money, our hard-earned money, we're looking for the sure thing at the lowest level of risk, right? This is common sense. This is how people behave. So um, often a client will say no to an idea, not because he's not brave, but when he does the calculation, the risk reward calculation, it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. And I always agencies like to get on their high horse about this
Mm-hmm.
and say, well, you have to be brave.
Mm-hmm.
But agencies don't ever put up their fee as skin in the game either. Um, to take to take a chance on a risky idea.
Mm-hmm.
And we never talk about that. But agencies are displaying the same behavior as clients. They're not taking crazy risks because this is not a game.
Right.
So and the other thing, and this is the account management guy speaking here, but it's never a good thing to implicitly suggest that your client is a coward. You never want to do that. Uh, Clients will remember the slight,
Oh yeah.
And you'll pay for it later
And
on.
you'll pay for it. They'll make your life
You'll pay for
very,
it.
very, very
Of
hard.
course.
Very, very
Of
hard.
course. Of course.
But again, most of us have also experienced really great client relationships, and there's nothing like that when you do come onto a client that appreciates and values what the agency does, their role, how they can contribute to building the business. I'm all for that, and effective marketing really depends on effective communications. And now it's even more important than ever because we have multiple relationships that we're juggling. We have specialists that we're dealing with. We have more media options. We need to be much more nimble, and we need to be much more acute to how we make some of these decisions together and work together and not create you know, the tension that distracts us and doesn't really contribute to any of the business. So
When an agency presents an idea, a lot of agencies make the mistake of presenting a couple of options. One is a safe option, and one is the creative option, or the risky option. But you never want to serve up that choice. What you want to say is this is the right option. But we continue to make that mistake, and it's with many clients, it's almost a joke. It's a little inside joke, and they know that the agency is going to serve up some lukewarm stuff that is approvable, and then they're going to serve up some risky stuff that they really love. um it's all a little game. It's a
So
game.
at the senior level, agency and advertiser, these 5 points, and there's probably more for sure, should be brought up and discussed. And
Let's summarize them.
and address them. Yeah, absolutely. So, have that conversation, number one. All clients are not the same. So have that conversation with your agency about how you like to work, what's best for the business, and let them also contribute to how they can, be more effective on your business and how that they contribute. Right?
Yep.
Point number two is, don't think that your agency is making huge amounts of money, and you squeeze their compensation. Have an open conversation about what the costs are for the team that the agency is recommending to be able to properly service your business and deliver great work. There's a lot more openness in terms of the books, in terms of not the details of salaries, but what the compensation is in terms of the total salary, overhead, and the agency is entitled to make a profit just like you are. So if you are going to squeeze your agency and you're not going to allow them to properly service the business because you're paying them little money, you won't get great results. In fact, it's a recipe for disaster. The third point is all about keep senior people at the client side involved in the projects. Don't just let them go to the junior folks. They should be involved as junior folks, but in a learning phase, in a learning mode. Make sure that the senior client is the one who is taking the responsibility with the agency in terms of feedback, signing the brief, feedback, the process, and the collaboration that's really needed to come up with some really great work. Point four is all about, think about, as an advertiser, think about AOR assignments, longer term, and agencies working with you in a strong partnership versus just on a per project basis. That's been happening. There's more work now on a per project basis. It's we're not saying that it's a bad thing, but AORs do tend to lead to have better relationships, stronger relationships, longer term relationships with your agency. So think about how you want to engage with the agency mid long term and not just short term because you need a campaign for the holidays, whatever. And finally, the last point is, don't think that if the client is not approving an idea, what you think may be a big idea, and that he is a coward and not brave. That is far from it. Clients are much more set in developing ads that are going to have a predictable outcome, that are there to build a business. They will take chances with you, and I think that it's the agencies. It's up to the agency also to bring the client along to try to make them try new things and test different approaches to brand building. But don't be condescending by telling him that they're not brave. It's just going to be bad for your relationship going in the end. Want to have some closing thoughts, Vivek?
No, I hope that some of these points that we've discussed here have made some of the listeners, reflect a little bit on, and listeners on the agency side and listeners on the advertiser side, on both sides, reflect a little bit on these things, these misconceptions that they're taken as facts, but they're not, and they're causing a lot of trouble. So pay some heed to us, and you can get better work from your agency, and your agency will be happier to work with you. That would be my final thought.
Thank you for joining us on this episode. Vivek and I are Think Catalyst. We are a consulting firm that helps advertisers and help agencies develop better relationships, develop stronger partnerships. We do agency search, we do talent search, we do relationship management programs. We help agencies develop business building and new business strategies. Ping us, find us, write to us. We'd be happy to have a conversation with you. share this podcast, like us. We appreciate you following us, and thank you for listening. We are here to help the community work better and get better results. Vivek, have a good one.
Absolutely. You too.
See you
We'll
in the next
talk again
podcast
next
next week. Yep.
Take care.
Goodbye.